Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we discuss my thoughts on Season 2, Episode 11 of the Orville, entitled Lasting Impressions. And I'm just going to get out of the way right away and say this episode it really tugged at my heartstrings. I enjoyed the majority of it. In all the ways unrequited love has had an effect on my own personal life, I could kind of highly relate to what Gordon was going through. Of course, not with any sort of holodeck or simulator programming involved, but just, rising to the challenge of wanting to be with someone, believing in yourself to be in love with them, and it not working out for, various reasons, whatever like that. I could highly relate, and it carried an emotional impact that I wasn't expecting going into this episode. I thought it was going to be much more comedic and aloof and sort of goofy or something like that. I didn't expect it to actually carry such a gravitas in the interpersonal interconnectivity, the characterization between Gordon and Laura, this 400 years hence young woman who expertly played by Leighton Meester. Her and his Scott Grimes bounding off of each other in this episode was just spectacular. Character-wise, characterization-wise, performance-wise, they each brought a legitimacy that, I was really respectful of and really entertained by and engrossed by, in their interactivity. It was really highly believable, and it was kind of a tragedy at the same time because you knew it was a foregone conclusion from the word go that this wasn't going to work out. There was an impossibility that it was going to be able to go anywhere. And I say that, completely and utterly aware of things like Star Trek Voyager, whereupon there was a holographic doctor, as portrayed by Robert Picardo, who we've seen in, the Orville as Alara Khatan's father, who was, for all intents and purposes, very much akin to Lieutenant Commander Data on Star Trek The Next Generation. He was a holographic entity that brought up the question, what do we consider life forms to be? And he had gained his own sort of self-awareness and became an entity all his own. And they really could have gone that direction, exploration-wise, in this characterization, in this plot of a man, a human being, falling in love with the simulation, the equivalent, the personification of this young woman who existed so long ago. I just thought there was really great poignancy, not only in the tragedy of it not working out and the ways that it didn't work out, but also in the fact that, you had this great bit of dialogue between Kelly and Gordon toward the end of the episode where he's getting very misty-eyed, and it really carried with it an emotional pang. Because she raises the point, as soon as you manipulated and altered this program, which was, in a sense, it was kind of like Pandora's box. It was this miraculous thing, this recreation of this young woman, Laura's life. As soon as you manipulated and dipped your brush into the paint in that regard, it became just like every other simulation that we all interact with whenever we're on the simulator. It was authored. It was the product of someone's mind's eye. And it's no longer this miraculous thing by that point. And it's a fiction. It's fake. It's whatever, fool's errand you want it to be for your own satisfaction. And I really appreciated the poignancy of that and sort of the commentary there, because in a sense, you could kind of look at it as social media commentary, how we interact online and how we sometimes have this idea of who the people are that we are interacting with and communicating with, and we may have an impression of them that isn't necessarily the truest estimation of who they are. It's the same thing even in, the offline world and in the physical interactivity world where we meet face to face and that kind of thing. A lot of people pretend to be a lot of things, and there's so much that they could have really delved into in this episode as far as what makes us who we are, from being a living energy, a soul within this meaty shell, to just this crude matter, in our minds. All of those things, all of that philosophical, sort of conundrum, that dilemma, that ongoing thing that even to this late stage, some would say middle stage, early stage, still as yet, of humanity, of the history of humanity, it's still rife for debate. It's still rife for speculating and wondering what it's all about. And I think the biggest disservice to the episode, for me, per my own subjective tastes, I describe myself, I'm self-described as a laid-back straight edge type of person. And for those who don't know what straight edge is, for all intents and purposes, it's sort of a promise one makes to oneself not to partake or have anything to do with addictive substances like nicotine, cigarettes, drugs, alcohol, that kind of stuff. I live my life wanting nothing to do with any of that kind of stuff. And usually I don't really interact or care to interact with anyone who is, subject to those particular vices for how nasty and unappealing and unhealthy and potentially lethal as they all, usually turn out to be. And so the whole sort of subplot of the episode, the comedy B plot of the episode of Bortus and Clyden becoming addicted to cigarettes really kind of fell flat for me. It was largely played for the comedy, and I really was struggling. I was trying to give Seth and the writers of the show the benefit of the doubt that there was also some kind of commentary going on here about addiction and addictive substances and how insane and twisted, succumbing to them can be and can make you and whatever like that. I mean, but there really wasn't a whole lot of poignancy to it. In the end, what's the punchline? Bortus and Clyden come to blows over hidden cigarettes around their quarters, and then Claire comes in, the doctor comes in with a syringe. Oh, I got your injection. Who wants it? We do! Yuck, yuck, waka, waka. So funny, LOL. Laughing face emoji. It really didn't do anything for me. And I was thinking constantly every time we cut back to that aspect of the plot, wow, there's so much of this engrossing story to do with Gordon and Laura. And all of that philosophical and just humanitarian debate about romance, about love, about connectivity between people, between, not just one person to another, but also all of those intriguing ideas about AI and self-awareness. And I mean, we're existing now on the precipice of robots and AI becoming self-aware and the subservitude of robotic sex workers and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's all been something that has permeated science fiction and fiction at large for a very long time. And there's just so much more they could have done. Every aspect of this episode that revolved around Gordon and Laura and all of the rest of the crew, sort of being bewildered and mystified by this and being very much the voice of reason and the pragmatist sort of sentiment that, dude, this isn't going to work out. It's not really real. I mean, it is sort of this miracle, this recreation of her, but it's just a recreation. It's just a simulation still. All of that. There's so much more that they could have delved into, and they could have, primped up this story. It wouldn't have been filler. It wouldn't have needed this gross, very not funny, comedic beeline story to do with cigarettes. If they had excised that, there's just so much more focus they could have kept on that relationship between Gordon and this young woman, Laura, who didn't exist anymore. Which I think, again, every aspect of which was engrossing, kept me on the edge of my seat. It was so legitimate in its portrayal. I was like, is there some way this can work out? All of the holographic doctor from Voyager, who, because of a temporal incursion in the far-flung future, he was able to have, the mobile sort of holographic emitter, and he had become his own self-aware entity and was a life form to be protected with all the inalienable rights that we all have. Could it go that way? Could it have gone that way? I don't know. but for a packet of cigarettes. We'll never know. And so that was the big downside. I'd say it was like sort of a 70-30. 70 very much enjoyed the episode and loved everything that was going on. That whole duet toward the end of the episode between Gordon and Laura in the simulator. And, you know, because I only just newly became aware of the fact during the Identity two-parter that Scott Grimes was even a singer, a performer. He was spot on. He was spectacular, bounding off of her and you know, harmonizing with her. I wish we could have gotten more of that. Just everything about that aspect of this episode, of this story. I was glued to the screen. I wanted more of it. And so, again, 70% of this episode was just thorough enjoyment and being engrossed and drawn in. And then you had that 30% of the... It's like, really? Cigarettes. Yeah. So, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 11 of season 2 of the Orville, entitled Lasting Impressions. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to consider supporting my channel, please have a look at my PayPal support link posted both in the description as well as the comments below. It affords you opportunities akin to Patreon, where you can set up a monthly contribution, one-time only kind of thing, send me a personal message alongside a contribution requesting topics I may discuss in the future, ask for shout-outs, make recommendations of things I may check out, and shout you out down the line if I happen to talk about. And anything you saw fit to send my way would be 2 thumbs up for me and just secure my longevity on YouTube for the foreseeable future. And it would just mean a lot if you took the time. So, yeah. Otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.